One of my favorite things is putting together a delightful afternoon tea. So here are a few of my favorite tea sandwiches, including some keto and gluten-friendly hacks. One of my favorite things about having tea is the delightful and delicious food. A few wonderful little details definitely adds to the general ambiance. So when we started the keto diet, I knew I didn't want to sacrifice the quality of my afternoon teas and immediately began looking into some keto-friendly tea options. I've already made a video about my really delicious keto-friendly scones, so I'll link those down below, but I've also gotten some really awesome tea sandwich options. Of course, these sandwiches will work for anybody. You don't have to be on keto or any other sort of dietary restrictions. You can adapt these as you want very easily, and they are going to be delicious for anybody. And just as I have adapted these to my needs, you can easily adapt these to yours. You don't have to be on keto. These will work as is for anybody. If you do have any sort of dietary restrictions, such as gluten-free, there are some really great options in here, or some very easy adaptations that you can make on your own. These are really very simple. Tea sandwiches, as a rule, are not usually very complicated, so it's easier to adapt them to something like keto than you would initially think. Of course, the first major hurdle is bread, because that is a major keto no-no, and can you really have tea sandwiches without bread? Well, kind of. As the keto lifestyle is really picking up steam, you're seeing more and more items on regular grocery shelves that either talk about being keto-friendly or are very highly marketing their net carbs. So it's getting a lot easier month by month to live the keto life and have fewer sacrifices in your diet. And of course, there are a ton of recipes online for keto breads, but I have found that a lot of them do not act and behave the same way that regular bread does, and so therefore they get a little odd when you're making something like a tea sandwich out of that, because a lot of the tea sandwiches have very simple, light palate sort of flavorings. So when you get something like a very eggy bread recipe, for instance, that can really throw off the whole flavor of the sandwich. Not to mention, you're already going to have a lot of extra prep time when you're doing something like a big fancy tea, so then having to stop and bake an entire loaf of bread is not necessarily something that you want to have to deal with. One of our favorite options is this zero-carb bread. It tastes and acts exactly like regular store-bought or fresh-baked bread, so you can make sandwiches out of it very easily. You don't have to worry about having some weird texture that's going to crumble if you try to cut it into cute shapes or something. It's going to act like you had bought just a regular loaf of bread right off the shelf of your grocery store. It's a little bit pricey for what amounts to a fairly basic bread, but if you're trying to do something fancy like the tea, I think it's totally worth it as a sort of splurge item on occasion, and we're actually very lucky that we have a store locally that actually carries it, so we don't have to worry about having to order it in or going through a lot of effort for it. Another great little trick is to actually use slices of cucumber in the place of bread. Since it's already small, you're not taking a big slice of bread and cutting it down to a smaller bite-sized piece. It's already bite-sized, so that's convenient. And on this diet, we almost always have cucumber around and on hand, so that's one less thing to have to go out and buy special and worry about having in the house. There are also a lot of low-carb tortillas and sandwich wraps hitting the market nowadays, and there is nothing cuter than a pinwheel sandwich for tea. And now that you have some bread options, what are you going to put on those sandwiches? A traditional favorite, of course, is the cucumber sandwich, a thin layer of cream cheese and some nice paper-thin slices of cucumber, maybe accented with a little bit of a fresh herb, but not necessary, and no tea really seems complete without cucumber sandwiches. If you're like me and you've looked into different tea sandwich options a lot, then you'll notice that they get a little repetitive using cream cheese as a base. So a nice little twist on the cucumber or some other sandwich is to swap out cream cheese with ricotta. Using the ricotta instead of always the cream cheese will give you a slight variation without overpowering a lot of the other flavors of sandwiches. One of my favorites of tea is almost always the egg salad sandwich. It's really simple but delicious, and you can make your own egg salad really quickly, very easily, and then you can very easily customize it to whatever dietary restrictions you have. I just very finely dice up a couple of hard-boiled eggs, and then I add in a little bit of keto-friendly mayonnaise and sweetener. With a pinch of salt and a light sprinkling of paprika, and you've got a simple, basic egg salad that is delicious and very keto-friendly. And of course, you can very easily jazz it up a little bit if you want. I usually add just a touch of very finely diced onion and cucumber, a little bit of extra flavor there, as well as a little bit of crunch. I think it's delicious, and I really like to add that to my egg salad. There are also a lot of really great, very simple pinwheel recipes available, and they make a great option for tea. There's the classic ham and Swiss, or you can always kick it up a notch with something like ricotta and prosciutto. There are a lot of different options. You can add in whatever sort of extras you want, like again, some diced onion, maybe a little bit of spinach. So many different options there that you can please anybody with, and they're really easy and they're going to be attractive, which is, of course, an important part of tea. Chicken salad is also a classic tea sandwich that is really easy to make keto. I like to shred up a little bit of leftover rotisserie chicken, add again my keto-friendly mayo, a little salt, a little pepper, and just a splash of apple cider vinegar. We don't usually keep around celery, but we do always have that cucumber, so I usually dice up a little bit of that to throw in. And that gives you a pretty good basic chicken salad, but again, you can always jazz things up a little bit if you like. For instance, maybe you want to throw in some cranberry, or maybe you want to have a sweet curry, add a little bit of curry powder in there. It's really easy to make things just a little bit cooler, a little bit fancier, with just a couple little ingredients added to a very basic recipe. So as you can see, it can be very easy to adapt tea sandwiches to whatever sort of dietary restrictions you're dealing with. And as an added bonus, usually unless you're dealing with an entire shower tea, for instance, where you're going to be serving a lot of people, you're usually making small amounts of everything. So it's a really great way to use up little bits of extra in your kitchen. Like if you have a couple of hard-boiled eggs or a little bit of that rotisserie chicken left, and they're not really enough for a whole meal on their own, but they'll definitely make up a few sandwiches, and that's perfect for tea. A lot of these sandwiches are very simple ingredients, but with afternoon tea, presentation is everything. For instance, I usually like to make each type of sandwich a different shape. So I might slice some in rectangular shapes, some might be triangular, still others might be on a slice of cucumber, so those are obviously going to look very different, and even other ones might still be on bread, but I might use a biscuit cutter or a cookie cutter to make them circles or some other basic simple shape, so that if I am trying to play up a certain theme, like say a spring theme tea, I might have little flower shaped sandwiches. you found this video helpful, I hope you'll like and subscribe down below. I hope you found it inspiring and helpful for your own afternoon tea. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time.